I notice how the internet loves to gush over the new 10 best fight scenes in anime 2016 and all that, but you don't see much love for manga fights. So now I'm going to do a service to you all and give you 10 great manga fights, in my opinion. There's no order to this list, and keep in mind that I haven't read everything, so no bitchin'. I'll also limit myself to manga fights that have not been animated as of uploading this video, along with having only one fight per franchise. If you've got any fights in mind, please let me know below. I love me some action. So with that out of the way, let's do this shit. Now some of you may be thinking, the fuck man, this shit was already animated, you're breaking your own rules, kill yourself. Let me explain. The manga and anime version of this fight are vastly different. The anime version is like a scoop of vanilla ice cream, while the manga version is a goddamn banana split sundae with 5 different flavors of ice cream, caramel, hot fudge, whipped cream, and a fucking cherry on top, alright? Where the anime version is interrupted several times, the manga version's interrupted once towards the beginning. That means once the shit picks up, you're treated to beautifully drawn, non-stop action for several chapters. Not to mention, Black Star is whipping out some badass fucking weapons you ain't seen until now. The techniques, the fast pacing, and brutality of this fight is an absolute joy to behold. But then things slow down briefly. Black Star and Mifune decide, fuck it. No powers, no extra weapons, just the two of us holding a sword, and they just go at it. They just keep cutting at each other continuously, and the art starts to look almost like demonic. It's, kind of like how Vagabond will portray killing intent, how Berserk will portray guts going crazy and all that with the Berserk armor. Something along those lines. It's so wonderful. I love this fight. It disappoints me so much that the anime version did not do this justice, because this could have been something legendary. If you've only watched Soul Eater, or maybe you never even gave it a chance, I implore you to give the manga a try. Speaking of Vagabond, hey, I love this fight, man. This is great. Until Musashi and Kojiro have their final duel, I feel there's only one fight in Vagabond that stands above all the others. And not to say the other fights are bad, because they're fucking phenomenal. It's just that this one is so incredible that it almost brings you to tears, really. If you've never been a fan of how shonen manga tend to glorify fights, then this is probably your wet dream. After having killed each of the heads of the Yoshioka school, Musashi is confronted by all 70 of the remaining members. What happens next is one of the most raw, emotional, messy, and epic scenes of violence ever depicted in comic format. I could talk more about it, but I don't want to spoil this shit for you guys, alright? If you haven't read Vagabond yet, just stop the video and get started, alright? I love Hajime no Ippo. Like, seriously, I think it's so often overlooked due to its length. Admittedly, 1,163 chapters is a bit nuts, but I've enjoyed pretty much every single chapter of it. It's got some of the most intense fights in manga, and this fight in particular was one of the highlights. For those who are unaware, Miyata is kind of the Sasuke to Ippo's Naruto. Ippo likes to focus on rushing down the opponent and just punching the shit out of them. And Miyata focuses on quick, precise movements and counter punches. He adopted this style after his father, who acts as his trainer. This was the era of Ippo where they like to refer to the boxers as some sort of god, making this fight a battle between Miyata, the god of lightning, and Randy Boy Jr., the god Asura. Randy Boy's ambidextrous style made for the perfect counter to Miyata's style. This match feels so tense the entire time, and it's long. You feel like either one could land the finishing blow at any time. But then out of nowhere, in the final moments of the match, Miyata begins to unknowingly develop his own unique style of boxing. He no longer felt the need to strictly adhere to his father's teachings, and he did what he felt he needed to do to win. For this reason and many more, Miyata is a damn badass, far superior to Sasuke. Fight me, Naruto fans. Gamaran is a bit underground, considering it was published in Weekly Shonen magazine, same place as Fairy Tail, Hajime no Ippo, Seven Deadly Sins, all those. To grossly simplify things, Gamaran is about a tournament that's supposed to decide the strongest martial arts school in the land. Things get nuts, and now the Ogame school, which the main character Gama and many others belong to, needs to infiltrate the Shogun's castle and kill Gama's dad. The series lives off its intense and highly technical sword fights. One of my favorites being the fight between the master of a quick drawing school and his star disciple. The fight ends in only 3 swings from each and is intense as fuck. Usually when characters stop fighting to talk, it bothers me. But in this case, it works perfectly to build up tension and suspense between each slash. Throw in some added complexities to this fight and a baller as fuck ending. You've got a masterpiece. I can't recommend this manga enough to action fans. I'd love for it to get more attention. After the events that took place at the Tower of Salvation, Guts heads back to Riekert's place, only to find a revived Griffith accompanied by Za just chilling out in the Field of Swords, made to honor the death of all the deceased members of the Band of the Hawk. Guts, he's furious, and he wants a piece of Griffith, but nope. Zod is stepping in instead. And what starts out as a fight between 2 skilled swordsmen, quickly and strategically striking and blocking incoming attacks, becomes a brutal fight between monsters, throwing each other around, wrecking everything around them, and it's great. The fight was cut short by Griffith, but one can only imagine how things would be different if these 2 were allowed to fight to the death back then. There are tons of top-notch fights in this series, but the fact that this just came out of fucking nowhere and was exciting as it was is just what makes it stand out to me so much. Sunken Rock is a weird series. It's got some of the best art I've ever seen in a manga. It's got comedy, action, and a lot of TNA. It stars a Japanese student named Ken that decided to follow this chick from his class to Korea because fuck it. Unfortunately for him, he didn't know Korean and his life was shit for about a year until he was approached by an up-and-coming mobster named Park Tae-seo, asking Ken to be his boss. So now, he's a Korean mob boss, and the thing about Korea is that guns and other dangerous weapons are illegal. This makes the perfect excuse to have amazing fucking mobster fistfights. At some point in the story, Ken decides he doesn't want to be a gangster and tries to be a manager at an idol company. They find their girls, and now Ken is in charge of them and their well-being and all that. He connects with them. However, the higher-ups at the organization form this idol group in order to get some pussy. And Ken is not having any of that shit. He gives up his position as a manager and storms the building as a mob boss once again. He blows through a bunch of henchmen in glorious fashion and makes his way to Kim Gai-ha, the owner of the idol firm. What happens next can only be described as the beatdown of the century. As Ken lays into this fool, you feel the weight and impact of each hit. The art is absolutely spectacular and perfectly conveys Ken's rage towards the whole company, everyone. The arc leading up to this point is admittedly weird and quite a change of pace compared to the rest of the series, but my god, if this climax wasn't the most satisfying fucking thing to read. Give this manga a shot, guys, seriously. It's got some ecchi shit in there, but I don't feel it deters from the quality of the story at all. It's not very well known, but I think it should be. It's really great. If you like Berserk, chances are you'll like Gantz. All the brutality, death, action, suspense, mystery, and sex that are present in Berserk are very much alive in Gantz. It follows a teen named Kei Kurono, who is run over by a train and killed. He wakes up in a small room with several other people and a large black sphere. They're sent out on missions to kill different kinds of monsters before being sent back to their normal lives. No one outside of this knows it exists until a certain mission. Facing their biggest threat so far, the Gantz group, as I'll call them, unexpectedly becomes visible to all the bystanders, whereas they weren't before. It was completely invisible, no one knew what was happening. After fighting through waves of tough enemies, they're met with what they refer to as the Oni alien. This demonic-looking motherfucker boasts insane speed and strength, along with some dope-looking horns. All the surviving members gather to fight it as the Oni alien takes each one of them out of commission, one by one, until Kurono and another one of the stronger members decide to step up and finally murk the dude. This frantic, high-stakes, and seemingly impossible fight throws you on an absolute emotional roller coaster. Gantz is a series that is not afraid to kill off characters, so with that in mind, you legitimately don't know if everyone will make it out of this. Coupled with the fact that this fight is on full display to the public, you not only see Kurono and the others receive the recognition they deserve, but you eventually see the consequences of this later on. It's a beautiful fighting series. Check it out if you haven't. It makes me very sad that this manga was never fully adapted into anime. I liken it a lot to Gintama, actually. Both have a large focus on gag comedy with a large cast of characters, but occasionally turn serious. In Katekyo Hitman Reborn's case, it remains serious for almost the entire series after a certain point, and it's damn good. This fight takes place at the end of the arc that proceeds directly after where the anime ended, which just so happens to be my favorite arc. It revolves around a family similar to the Vongolas transferring to Yamimori, the school that our main characters go to. They find their own rings and decide to turn on the Vongolas. Fighting happens, and eventually it's revealed that Damon Spade, the mist-user of the first generation Vongola, was behind the whole thing. What happens next was one of the coolest fights I've ever read. It's just a lot of fun. That's really what it is. Suna, along with his Sky Ring, puts on one of the opposing family's Earth Rings as well. This grants him insane fire-based powers and the ability to manipulate gravity. This fight is equal parts climactic, badass, creative, trippy, and just spectacular. It's fun just looking at these panels. I feel like Reborn is a underappreciated gem of Shonen Jump. I implore you all to give it all a shot if you haven't. One Punch Man has so many great fights that it's damn hard to pick a favorite. Like seriously, Murata just seems to shit out amazing action. Since I did give myself the stipulation that I can't choose a fight that's already been animated, Boros is out. That's fine though. In fact, it lets me highlight my favorite thing to happen to One Punch Man, Garo. Garo is pretty much the antithesis of Saitama. Saitama was obsessed with being a strong hero, but Garo is obsessed with being a strong monster. He's fought several heroes up to this point and continues fighting more heroes after this fight. But this one just sticks out to me for some reason. After beating on some of the lower level tank tops, Garo is confronted by Tank Top Master. Now, Tank Top Master quickly corners Garo until Garo decides to make use of his martial arts trait that he received from Silverfang. From that point on, it's pretty much Tank Top genocide, with Moomin Rider and Chiranko stopping by as well. This is a great way to showcase Garo's power and his growth so far, and I'm eagerly awaiting the inevitable Saitama vs. Garo final showdown. I doubt Saitama will have much trouble, but I love to see what Garo does leading up to it all. If you thought I wouldn't put a JoJo's fight on here, I don't know what to tell you. Considering that Part 7, Steel Ball Run, is where I got my name from, it should be no surprise that it's my favorite. This fight takes place over 16 chapters of monthly publication, and every bit of it oozes with that JoJo magic. This climactic battle against the President of the United States may not be the last fight in the part, but it feels like it is. Funny Valentine already boasts one of the strongest stands in JoJo's, but then he receives what can only be described as the power of Jesus, which elevates him either further up the OP meter. All four of our heroes, play an important role in this fight, leading into an intense action, trippy nonsense, heartbreak, and classic Western-style showdowns that Araki loves so much. I don't want to spoil much for those that haven't read it, so I'll just say this. This is my favorite fight from my favorite section of my favorite manga. I feel that speaks for something. So there you go. 10 great manga fights, in my opinion. Like I said before, let me know below some fights that you really like. I always love learning and seeing new things and all that good shit. And what did you think of the fights that I showed here? I think they're pretty good, but that'll do it for this one. I'll see you all around.